Have you ever canceled plans and instead of feeling guilty, you felt relief? For a moment, it almost feels like something heavy just slid off your chest. Your body relaxes, your mind gets quiet. And then almost immediately, another thought appears. Why do I feel so happy about this? Is something wrong with me? The short answer is no, nothing is wrong with you. That feeling of relief isn't laziness. It isn't a personality flaw. It isn't you being antisocial. In many cases, it's simply your nervous system exhaling. But for most of our lives, we've been taught to feel ashamed of that feeling. We live in a culture that quietly treats solitude like a problem. If you enjoy being alone, people assume something must be wrong. Maybe you're shy. Maybe you're socially anxious. Maybe you're depressed. The assumption is always the same. If you prefer your own company, there must be some hidden wound behind it. And yes, sometimes that's true. But other times, a person simply thinks better alone. They process emotions more clearly in silence. They recharge faster when the world gets quiet. Instead of asking whether solitude is healthy or unhealthy, maybe the better question is, why were we told it had to be one or the other? Let's imagine someone named Maya. Maya is in her late 20s. She works in marketing. She likes her friends, enjoys conversations, and she's not shy at all. But every time a group trip gets planned, something strange happens. About a week before the trip, a small feeling of dread starts building in her chest. She goes anyway, she always goes, because not going feels like admitting something is wrong with her. But when the trip is over, Maya comes home exhausted in a way that sleep doesn't fix. And for years, she assumes the same thing many people assume. Maybe I'm just not social enough. What never occurs to her is something much simpler. Maybe she's just wired differently. Research from psychologist Elaine Aron suggests that around 15 to 20% of people are highly sensitive individuals. This doesn't mean they're emotionally fragile. It means their brains process sensory and emotional information more deeply than the average person. Think of it like this. During a social interaction, their brain is running more background processes. They notice subtle tones in voices. They pick up emotional signals others miss. They analyze conversations long after they end. So when someone like Maya spends a full weekend surrounded by people, her brain isn't just chatting and relaxing. It's working overtime, which means afterwards she needs something most people overlook: recovery time. But here's where the misunderstanding happens. Our culture tends to believe that if humans need connection, then more connection must always be better. But psychology doesn't actually say that. Research by social psychologist John Cacioppo showed that loneliness activates the brain's threat system, similar to physical pain. So yes, humans absolutely need connection, but needing connection doesn't mean needing constant social stimulation. Those are two very different things. In fact, studies on chosen solitude show something interesting. Psychologist Reed Larson found that when people voluntarily spent time alone, they often returned to social situations with better moods, clearer thinking, and stronger self-awareness. The key word here is chosen. Forced isolation can be harmful, but chosen solitude can actually be restorative. Yet society often confuses the two. We see someone eating alone and assume they're lonely. We see someone decline an invitation and assume they're depressed. Without realizing it, we've created a social script where presence equals wellness, absence equals something is wrong, and many people spend years performing extroversion just to feel normal. Think about what that does to a person over time. You go to the parties, you answer calls when you're already drained, you fill every silence with noise. Eventually you feel exhausted, and most people blame work, stress, or being busy. But the real problem might be simpler. You've been living slightly outside yourself for a very long time. Because when solitude stops being treated like a problem, something surprising happens. You gain access to your inner life, that quiet space where your real thoughts exist, where your values become clear, where emotions finally get processed instead of buried under constant noise. Solitude isn't emptiness. It's actually a different kind of fullness. Maya eventually discovered this by accident. One weekend, her plans fell through, and instead of filling the empty time, she left it alone. She read, cooked slowly, sat quietly with her own thoughts. Later, she said something that surprised even her. It felt like the first time in years I was actually living my own life instead of performing it. People who become comfortable with solitude often develop something rare today: cognitive independence. They think before the crowd tells them what to think. They're more comfortable disagreeing. They've already had the conversation with themselves. But there's an important balance here, because solitude can also become a hiding place. There's a difference between recharging and retreating. Recharging feels like restoration. You come back clearer, calmer, more present. Retreating feels different. At first it feels like relief, but slowly it turns into numbness and disconnection. And only you can really tell the difference. The people who use solitude well don't treat it like an identity. They're not loners. They simply step inward when they need to, and then step back into the world when they're ready. Because real connection requires something most people forget: presence. And you can't be present if you're constantly drained from performing connection you didn't have the energy for in the first place. In a world designed to keep your attention busy, to make silence uncomfortable, to make boredom feel unbearable,
Choosing to sit quietly with your own thoughts might actually be one of the most rebellious things you can do. So if you've ever felt that strange relief when plans get canceled, if you've always felt slightly more yourself in quiet spaces than crowded rooms, that feeling isn't something to hide. It's simply your mind telling you what it needs to function well. And understanding yourself like that is actually a form of intelligence. Because interestingly, the way people handle their time, their attention, and their thinking reveals something deeper about how their mind works. In my next video, we're going to explore something fascinating: the everyday habits that quietly reveal an extremely low IQ, behaviors many people do every single day without realizing what they say about their thinking. And once you see them, you won't be able to unsee them. So if you're curious about the subtle patterns that separate deep thinkers from reactive ones, make sure you watch the next video. You might start noticing them everywhere.